right, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you to all those who set up, to our cooks, and all those who make this possible every week. We are without a sponsor this morning. Oh, yeah.
For the first graduation.
Okay, the Seagulls. Mazel tov, mazel tov.
My father-in-law was it.
Mazel tov, welcome. Marnie was my student. So I father and daughter. Baruch Hashem. A lot of nachas. Okay, great. Shkayach. So we will get going. Here we go. So we're in Parshas Naso as we move forward, right? As we move forward in Muncie in Brooklyn world, they say after Shavuos, you say a Guten Zimmer, right? That you can have you should have a good summer, right? Because basically, that's it. We live life from holiday to holiday to holiday, and there's nearly nothing else in between. Lamaisa, we're gonna move on. Parshas Naso. Here we go, right? We carry with us, and we move forward. So we're gonna see a couple of pieces. You'll see as they're related to each other. Okay. So you have the parsha, obviously the parsha of Sota and Parshas Naso. You have the parsha of the Nazir, the Nazirite, and you have the parsha of the. There's more, but you also have the parsha of Birkas Kohanim. Okay, of the priestly blessing. And you'll see that there's a relationship here between, particularly the Nazir and the Birkas Kohanim. So let's see. Dabar Acher, we're picking it up from where it says Dabar Acher in the middle. Ki afli. So the way that the Torah introduces the parsha of Nazir is it says that if a man or a woman, Isha Isha ki afli lindor neder nazir lahazir laHashem, if a person were to sort of jump out there in a wondrous way, go out and make an oath of allegiance to God, so to speak. Dabar acher, ki afli, lashon havdalah, v'hafrasha. It's a language of separating oneself, right? Distinguishing oneself, turning away from the regular order of things. V'davar ze yesh lefarsho b'shlosh panim. And we can explain this three ways. Ha'echad hu, sha'al yidei hayayin, eino yachol lahavdil, ben kodesh l'chol. Right, that, when obviously the Nazirite's not, refrains from wine. So through taking yourself away from wine, not drinking alcohol, you have the ability to distinguish between that which is holy and that which is profane, because wine kind of muddles things, as we know. Kamoshin Emar, Yain v'sheichar al teish tu smichle, ulahavdil ben hakodesh u ben hachol, as it says that you can't drink wine. This is right after Nadav and Abihu had been killed, and many said that was the issue, that they had gone into the Mishkan, a holy of holies, in a drunken state. And then it says, we need to distinguish between that which is holy and that which is profane, and they couldn't do that. That's why it says ki afli, the language of a pele, of a wonder. When a person wants to distinguish between that which is right and wrong, that which is holy and profane, az yazir atzmo min hayayin, pen yishteh b'yishkach michukak, okay, fine. So it basically says that, it's talking about this concept of hafla. It's an important thing. It's something that we need to do. Hashenihu, l'shon afrasha min tanuge ha'olam hazeh. The second is not that you're separating yourself from wine, but on a broader level, you're separating yourself from the pleasures of this world. You're becoming an ascetic. Asher hayayin rosh lechulam, and wine is the top of that totem pole when it comes to the earthly pleasures. Sh'amru shemitam ze nemar b'manoach lama zeh tishal lishmi v'hu plei hainu plei shemo ki kol malach nikra al shem hashlichut. Okay, this is the story of the prequel to the birth of Shimshon, right? And the angel appears to Eshes Manoach, to Manoach's wife, and he asks, Manoach comes over, right? And he says, "What's your name?" And he says, "What are you asking my name? My name is Plei," from the word Pili, right? That again, this concept of being wondrous. V'ani nishlachti lasos habein yilod nazir. I want him to make him a nazir. Mufla u'meforash mikol inyanei ha'olam hazeh. Meaning this idea of separating yourself from this world, being an ascetic. That's a wondrous thing. That's not something that's done every day, that people do. L'Hashem shnemar ishki afli l'kach anini kra peli. L'kach amar ki afli v'lo amar yafliu l'fi shagam neder shalisha, etc., etc. Okay. Weiter, right? So the second idea is that in the more general way, taking yourself out of this world, that's also a wondrous thing. Hashlit, now we don't know whether being wondrous or not is a good thing or not. That's what's important to note, right? It's something noteworthy, but we're not sure if it's good or not. And we'll see. Hashlishihu al derech shamar b'seinu hanoder kilu bana bama. When you take a vow, you make an oath, it's as if you're building a bama, you're building an altar, a personal altar. Now, generally, building a bama, is that considered a positive thing or a negative thing? Generally, it's considered a negative thing. Though, having grown up in Muncie, where there's a shtibel on every block, so everyone has their own bama, right? I have a basement. Okay, good. I can make a shul, right? But it's definitely considered, a negative thing. Okay, and Baruch Hashem, we see it here. One of the few communities, really, in the country, right, that we have one shul. It's actually an amazing, amazing thing. Okay? And on this, I found something really beautiful in Parshas Matos. Ayin Sham. Now here, in this third rendering, or this third potential answer, he's going straight in and he says, no, this is a bad thing. Ish ki afli, it's noteworthy for the bad. It's a negative thing. Why? You're building a bama for yourself, right? You're a sinner. V'achidhu, what's the sin? Sheboneh bama la'atzmo, v'hu poreshes atzmo mikol ha'olam, v'inhog iser b'davar shakol nohagim bo heter. That basically what you're doing is you're saying, that's us. That's us. What do you mean? We all eat it. That's fine. You could. That's no problem. No. It's us. You're saying that I am better, different, holier than other Jews, meaning things that are mutter. I've had this where, in general, just based on Masorah from my rabbis, yeshiva, etc. We have certain guidelines in terms of the kind of which hechsher I eat in Israel, right? Like the kind of meat. I'm a little more nuanced, right? Okay, so generally I'll only eat mahadran meat. But when I remember being on the El Al plane, right? You're sitting next to whomever, whether you're sitting next to a person with a yarmulke, a person without a yarmulke. It's a Jewish person, I'm in the middle of a conversation, all of a sudden, are you going to have the kosher or the special kosher, right? And I used to be like, special. Come on, I'm going to have the special kosher. And I said to myself, what am I doing? It's terrible. I'm sitting right next to another Jew, right? Whatever the case of their Judaism is, I'm going to separate myself. No, I don't do it. On El Al, I eat regular kosher. I mean, it's probably a trumped up price. We know it is. But I eat regular kosher, whatever it is. Oh, you can have special? Just kosher. Kosher's fine for me, right? Why? Because what are we saying? The idea is not, and the ideal isn't to build a bama for yourself. Right? Say, I'm better. Right? No. Right? Okay, on my own time, doing my own thing. Okay, fine. I'll only eat this kind of meat and this. But that's for myself. I don't need to be, sitting next to the guy, on the plane, and I'm, separating myself like I'm a better person. L'kach ne'amar ki afli shehu rotzeh liyot muvdal u'mefurash mizulato. That's why it's ki afli, because that person, it's not that he's like, he's distinguishing from that which is holy and that which is profane, that which is right and good. He's separating himself from the pleasures of this world. He's living a more modest and frugal life. No, this is, you're separating yourself from everyone else. You're making yourself a better person. You're taking a mechitza and you're saying, okay, I sit here and everyone else sits here, and this is the side of holiness, and this is the side of good, and this is the side that God wants, and everyone else, you're in a different section. Ubone banal bama la'atzmo. That's ki afli, and that's obviously with negative connotations. V'daber zeh eino matzui. And he says with nasha, etc. And we don't find this as more, men are doing this and saying women aren't going to do this. It's very nice. Okay. V'chiper alav me'asher chata ala nefesh. Okay. Next piece. So we're fast forwarding into the Nazir narrative, and it says that essentially the Nazirite, a stam Nezirus, they say is how long? 30 days. Stam Nazir is 30 days, right? I make a vow, I take a vow of being a Nazir, it's going to be 30 days. But, it could go longer, and it could also end earlier if what? If you were mitameh to a mace, right? You had a situation where, you ended up, whether it's, intentionally, unintentionally, you became tameh mace, you had to engage with a dead body, with a deceased, so your Nazirus ends. So it says that you have to atone for ending your Nazirus early. Shelo nizar min tumas mace. So why you have to atone? Because you weren't careful about tumas mace, you ended up defiling yourself. Rabbi Lazar Omer, al shetzir atzma min hayayin. And Rabbi Lazar says, no. Why do you have to atone? There's a famous Gemara. It's Gemara in Tanis. Rashi's quoting. Why do you have to atone? Because you took yourself away from wine. Right? You literally removed yourself from the pleasures of this world, and Hashem said, like here, you could have all these things. Why are you doing this? Behu pelei, and that's the wonder. Ki yesh la'afli al dvarav. Shim nitztava lahavi shtei torim al shetzir atzmo min hayayin. Lama maybe kapara zo dafka achar shenitma b'meis. So here's my question. It's funny. There's a play on words here. He's saying this is play. This makes no sense. It's not saying on the Torah. He's saying the Kliyakar is he's so brilliant, and he's saying this is a wonder. This makes no sense. This is, as Rabbi Goldbach, if anyone knows Rabbi Goldbach from Yeshiva University, he would say, Pilei Plaim. This is a wonder of wonders. I don't understand it. I don't understand. He goes, why is it that you have to bring Shtei Torim if you already had to do atonement on for taking yourself away from wine? Why is it now that you're only bringing that atonement when you were tamei mace? Meaning, if you did something wrong, l'chachila, initially, why are you only bringing the korban after, you defiled yourself to the mace? By definition, right in the beginning, you did something wrong. So why are we waiting? Ba'od shakasav kro kadosh, meich yomar b'belazar shenikra chote. Amazing question. He says, wait a minute. The Torah calls the Nazir a kadosh, a holy person. So why is Rebbe Lazar saying he's a sinner, right? Why is he doing kapar? Like, there's a stira here, there's a contradiction. V'nir shegam Rebbe Lazar modeh shekol yemei hemshech nizirato hu nikra kadosh v'lo choteh. So Rebbe Lazar definitely agrees that as long as the Nazirus was going on, as long as he was involved in this holy state, he was holy and not a sinner. Ki nazir lohimu, he dedicated himself to God. Amnam im nitma b'meis shedino hayamim harishani plu kitame nizra. But if he goes ahead and he commits, and he ends up defiling himself to a mace, he loses everything. Mikanu ulahalan chushbena ulamafrei loy milsa shayam harishanim lo ayu bichlal nazirus ucheilu tziras atzma be'emin hayayin below tam below ace niziraso. He's saying by definition what you've done is you kind of ruined the whole situation, right? It shows that even like what you did, in separating yourself from wine, in being a Nazir, was all for naught, right? You messed up, right? You messed up the whole thing. V'alkeinu nikra chote. Therefore, you're considered a sinner upon the things, again, lemafreya, right? After the fact, you realize, oh man, I did all this for naught, right? I should never have done this, because it's not something that's prescribed. It's not something that's, that God says, yeah, this is a good idea, or the rabbis even think it's a good idea. Right? So if you go ahead and take a Nazirus, and then you're not makpid, or you're not careful about all the laws of Nazirus, the whole thing is messed up. So essentially what they're saying is, like, why bother? Why did you bother, right? And why would anyone bother doing this? It's just going to be a waste of time. But we're going to talk about why that is. Vizet Perush Yakar, and says, I love this. This is a beautiful Perush, okay?
A regular Nazir gives a korban tadas at the end also, because of the Thomas. So why would, what's the
David's asking about the regular Nazir. I have to see the language. He does bring it for that. I have to see the language. I have to see the language. Does he use the language of kapara or not? It's a great question. Okay. It's like, I have a different perush here. Okay? This is why the Nazir is called a sinner. And this will answer your question a little bit, Dave. If you were a solid person, a good guy, a good woman, it's funny. That's why he keeps making this distinction between men and women. They're both involved in Nazir. A woman could be a Nazir also. Okay? But if you're a good person, you're solid, right? And you're thinking, you have a good head on your shoulders. You never would have had to do anything like this. Who's stopping you from taking certain things upon yourself and saying, you know what, I'm gonna, take an example. I was talking about, kashrus or Israel, whatever. Someone who wants to keep Chalav Yisrael, okay? Want to keep Chalav Yisrael? Keep Chalav Yisrael. Who's stopping you? What's it? There's no neder. There's no neder you need to take to do it. Just do it. You want to keep Pas Yisrael? Do it. You want to take something upon yourself? I do this. Fine. You don't have to tell anyone about it. You don't have to make a big deal about it. Just do it. Just do it. That's fine. But the fact that you need to I'm going to make a big stink about it. It shows that it shows something about yourself, that you don't trust yourself. The way I like to put it is, you're religiously insecure. If you're religiously insecure, you're going to be all over the person who's doing the thing that, you disagree with, or the thing that you would want to do, but you're not doing, and you're going to be the kanoi that gets out there and is making statements. All you have to do is read the news, and you'll see all about it. I heard that it's the most horrible statement yesterday from one of the Haredi MKs. He said about Yuli Edelstein. Yuli Edelstein was a Russian refusenik, who's now like the speaker of the Knesset or something. He's in a high position in Likud, and he's in charge of some of this stuff, and he's in charge of drafting a new draft law. And you heard the statement? He said you have you have an abominable soul, something like that, and it would have been better that you never came to Israel. You should have stayed in Russia. So he said, would have been a better thing if you stayed in Russia. Like, oh my gosh. Whoa, guys, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. The Charedim eventually will serve, and there are many serving. By the way, most of these places, the Lone Soldier Center places that you hear about, do you know the highest percentage of lone soldiers are? It's not the Mer HaKazas. You know what it is? It's the Charedim. It's the Charedim in Israel who their parents, basically say, you're on your own, right? They're going to be okay. They're going to be okay, and they can be religious. They're going to stay religious. It's going to be okay. We don't have to be so religiously insecure. It's going to be all right. We really need to believe that. It's going to be okay. But if you're scared, then you're going to make big statements, big pronouncements. Alkeinu kofetz v'nishba keneged ha'yetzara. Therefore, that person jumps up and he makes an oath to against the Yetzirah, because he feels like, if I don't have the oath, I'm not going to be able to do it. You see with kids come back from Israel, all of a sudden they're staying away from certain situations that are totally fine, but they're scared. They're worried. Most of the time they're able to reincorporate, but sometimes it doesn't work out, and sometimes it becomes a big mistake, right? You have someone they go all the way a certain way, and then 2 years later you're like, I thought you were, what? Why? Because there's a concept, kol hamosif gorea, right? If we try to push and add too much, we end up losing out. But you have to know where it comes from. If you know where it's coming from, then you're able to figure it out. Ubezeh garam la'atzmo tzar. That's where the tzar comes in. Ki kol davar hanadur Yitzro took phobioter. And he says that's what made it even worse. Once you made it forbidden, right, it makes it that much more, it has the Yetzer Hara even more, right, wants it more. What do we say? What's the Hebrew? Mayim, Genuvim, Yumtaku, right? Stolen waters are always sweetest, right? Umitam zen nikra kol noder b'chotei. Therefore, he's saying, number one, he's saying, you know why you're a chotei? Number one, because you couldn't do it yourself without a neder. Number two, by turning it into a neder and making it into a big thing, what you did was you created a situation in your mind, in your Yetzer Hara, that is going to make it even harder to stay away from, because you turned it into a thing. Once you make it into a thing, it makes it even harder. Mitam zen nikra kol noder chotei kol shalamdu min pasuk. Right? Don't make oaths, right? Don't make pronouncements like this, and you won't sin. Because what you're doing is you're inciting the Yetzer Hara on your own, right? You're building something up that didn't need to be built. V'omrim lo dayecha ma'asha asra alecha Torah b'ma'asar shel Yetzer Hara, and we say to that person, it wasn't enough what the Torah assered on you. The Torah made enough. We have enough. We have 365 things that are asr, that's min HaTorah, and probably several thousand more that are asr d'Rabbanan. You need to do more. You need to find the chumrah on the chumrah on the chumrah, right? We don't do that. We don't do that. V'havu delo lo sif alei. This is exactly what you should not have done, and you've incited your Yetzer Hara. You've created even more problems for yourself. Ki b'chol masha asra HaTorah. Because for everything that the Torah answered us, even though, fine, that gets the Yetzer Hara going. The Torah said you can't have a cheeseburger. Okay, great, I want a cheeseburger. Okay, you're good. This is how amazing is this piece? You're good, guys. You're good. You don't need the extra chumrah. You don't need the extra thing that needs to tell you that, you're better than everyone else. You don't need that. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the rules. We have Torah Shebechtav, Torah Sheba'al Peh, that's good, that should be enough. Amnam ha'over b'bal tosif, but someone who transgresses and does things even more, right? He says, no, I can't do this, even though the Torah doesn't say that. Hareu mosif geirui ha'Yetzer Hara, what you're doing is you're increasing the incitement or the appetite of the Yetzer Hara, of the inclination. Right? Again, you're pushing forward, and when you push forward, you're saying really the Torah isn't good enough for you. And if you say the Torah isn't good enough for you, you have a big problem. There are big problems there, and that's where we get into what orthodoxy means, and Orthodox tradition, and halacha, and the halachic system, versus, right, movements or individuals who said, let me change it here or there. It doesn't apply as much, and then what happened? You made a joke, it'll lead to mixed dancing. That's the old joke, but we see what's happened, unfortunately, in other movements. We see what happens. We see where it's gone, and it's like, it's sad. We've discussed this in the past, right? Do we have people who come to shul in all sorts of different ways? Yeah, we do. But can I tell them that they could come in all sorts of different ways? No. The parking lots closed, the doors are open. So, that's it, right? That's the way it goes. If I create heter, or I create a sense of isser where there isn't, all of a sudden I'm playing games with the Masorah. And that's where we get into a lot of trouble. He says, Kach Nazir Zeni Kra Chotei Mishnei Tzadim, and that's why the Nazir is called a Chotei from those two perspectives. By the way, who do we learn this from? Kol Mosif Gorea, someone who added on Isser and it brought calamity into the world.
Nachash.
It wasn't the Nachash. You're giving a nice danzan l'kapsachus. It was Chava. It's Chava. The Nachash said, didn't God say? You can't eat from that tree, and he said, and Chava said, oh, God said not only can't eat it, can't touch it, and that was the Peter, that was the way in for the Yetzer, for the Nachash. What did the Nachash say? What did he do according to the Medrash? What did he do? He said he pushed her to touch it. So look, touch it. Nothing's going to happen, right? God never told her you couldn't touch it. That was it. That was a chumrah. She added it. She was the first machmir in the world, and she added the chumrah. Right? Nachash said, look, nothing's going to happen if you do, because God said if you eat it, right, you'll die. Most numbers, right? But you won't. What?
So that we don't touch things that we do that though. We do that. We don't touch something that's
Correct. Yes, that the rabbis added that. She's asking about muktzah, right? A pen, I can't use a pen, right, to write, right? So therefore I say I can't touch it. The rabbis made that geder. But to go further than that, right? That I can't do, right? If I say, well, if there's a pen on the table, then I can't move the table, or something along those lines, right? There are different ways you could do it. You could move it this way. If I need the space, actually, I can pick it up and move it over there, right? Meaning you're not allowed to. You can't add on to that, right? That's where the getter is. This happened, maybe the rabbis learned from Chava, as Felisa says, right? As long as it's put in the books, it's in the books, it's okay. But that was the beginning of the end for humanity. Hey mitzache, so he says, why are you a sinner? Hey mitzache, kodem zir zeh ki ir prutza, ein matzar l'rucho ad asher hutzrach li kasher b'nazir. Says, number one, you're a sinner because clearly you could not control yourself. You were completely, you're unmoored, right? You couldn't control yourself, and you needed, some extra strictures and regulations put into your life. Number one. Number two, hey mitzachu biyoso nazir hu megara yitzar b'nafshe. And number two, because now that you're a nazir, you're making things even worse. It's okay to have a cup of wine. It's okay to have a kos kiddush. Obviously, someone's in recovery. It's different. I'm not talking about that. No, we're saying for anyone, right? It's okay. It's okay to go and help. It's a wonderful mitzvah to go and help with a mace, right? To go and bury someone. Oh, but you can't do it. Want to, yeah. You're creating Isser where it didn't exist, and that gets the Yitzhar going even worse. However, at the same time, he says, yes, does the Torah call him a Kadosh, that he's holy? Yeah, he's holy. If you actually withstood all of that, wow, like you're like a next level person. But you know what the word Kadosh actually means? It doesn't only mean holy, it means separate. Okay, that's great. You could live on a mountain by yourself and be this holy ascetic, and divest yourself from this world and from people and so on. That's very, very nice. But you know what? That's not what we want. And that's not what the Torah asks of us. Mirz Hashem, we should all be zocheh to be able to live within all of the strictures and all of the boundaries that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us in His Torah, through His Torah Shabbat, Torah Shabbat Peh, and be able to really live with everyone and feel connected to everyone, so we can all be a Mamleches Kohanim and a Goy Kadosh. Rabbi Chanan Rikashim HaKadosh Baruch Hu L'Zakos Es Yisrael Aficha Him Lem